noon start, first time. Beat goes on, we continue to embrace sudden change and see how our team can grow from some of the adversity that we've seen. Both the disappointing performance against SMU and now the loss of a leader and a captain. So we have to embrace it and find solutions and improve and do everything we can because of the environment, the situation we're in right now. So we had a good practice yesterday. We had a couple more injuries in practice yesterday after Spike's announcement, and we'll see today who can play tomorrow. So it's something, I guess, we have no other choice than to deal with it and do the best we can. And just the whole situation with Spike here is just such a storybook story of his career anyhow. And for it to end this way certainly is not something we envisioned or that we saw really coming until just recently. And it was something that we feel really bad for him. But we got to do what's best for him right now for his long-term health. I look at it sort of like if someone has a concussion, and yes, they could probably play, but they might be damaged goods for a long time afterwards. We learned that lesson over time. He's got some hips right now that need a lot of help, and by playing more on them, it's not going to help him long term. So the team moves on, and he will move on. And I did tell you got a job offer today. For as soon as you graduate, there's a job waiting for you. So I don't know if you're going to want to take it. You'd have to move, but it's a pretty good job. But I'll tell you about that later. So it's a Power of the Michigan brand. So that's all I'd say. Derek Walton has not practiced still. He is not at 100%, and we'll see what happens with tomorrow's game and today's practice.
Lev, you want to start us off?
Yeah, Coach, in terms of the decision process, what was the timetable for closing the book on what you're going to do with Spike this season, and how did the guys react when everyone learned?
Well, it's Spike's decision, and when he told me he could not have played the second half of the game the other day, that he was locked up, and his hips were really bothering him, and they've been bothering him badly for the last week, but just like last year, he played through pain, and so when he came to me with that, and now we start talking about long-term effect and talk with the doctors. We just said, this is the best thing, you're right. And it's been just when you go back at the whole thing, just an incredible story of a young man just getting an opportunity and just saying, I don't care what anybody says, I can play at Michigan. And so it's sad to see it happen, but at the same time, we got to embrace what a great role he had on this team for so long.
And you said the team heard the news yesterday.
Yeah, I told everybody, told the assistant coaches, we're literally an hour before practice.
And the reaction?
Everybody's, pretty, he's a well-respected leader and a great friend of everyone. And so everybody feels bad about it. Now you gotta play like Spike played, and we'll be a better team.
Brendan?
I guess this might actually be a better question for Spike, but the idea of actually a separation here, that not being around the program or not being on the bench or whatever, what kind of goes into?
Well, he'll be on the bench. We haven't talked through all these things yet. We expect him to graduate on time. If there's some situation in the second semester where we're traveling and he's got a big test that day, we will tell him to stay home. But no, he'll be on the bench every game, just won't be dressed. He'll still be an important part of the team, but he will be, with given practice or rehab at an alternate site, he'll be doing rehab. He just attending practice, but he'll attend practices.
Just shutting down basketball.
Yeah, just shutting down basketball right now.
And I guess in terms of the actual basketball side of it, now his return is now not an option. What does that mean?
Right. I mean, I'm not going to discount a miracle and not to discount any opportunity down the line. He's eligible for the whole year, and if a miracle happens, whatever. But we can't even think about him playing right now. And who knows? Who knows?
You met with him yesterday afternoon with Spike. Was that when the decision was made official, and how emotional was that conversation?
Yeah, it was right after you remember when you were in my office when we said Spike's waiting. But I already had conversations with his family and knew what he wanted to say to me. So So then we just had to sort of, we had we talked to the team, kept it tight, and then wanted to make the announcement with a statement so that there was no misunderstanding.
And can you go through a little bit about how you recruited him and how you found him and what that process was like?
Well, it was, we heard from some contacts, we were looking for, as Trey Burke continued to just play so well in his freshman year, we had concerns he would not be a 4-year guy. And we had to recruit a guy that was not gonna leave early, that knew that Trey Burke was Trey Burke, and he was willing to play, whether it was 1 minute to 10 minutes a game, he was willing to do that, because it was Michigan, it was the Big Ten, it was where he's from. And he had other opportunities, and he would have had more. He would have played Division I somewhere. Who would have known where it would have been? But I do not think the likes of the Big Ten were recruiting him at the time. And but it was really an easy recruit. He was ready to come from the very beginning that he came on campus. But he knew. I mean, Zach Novak knew his brothers. There was a lot of connection. He played with Mitch. He played with Glenn. In AAU, there was a lot of connection.
Michael?
John, practical purposes for this game, for going forward here, what do you do without Spike as an option? And obviously with Derek hurt right now, and how much could that potentially disrupt your offense because of who you have to handle the ball?
No, without question. So Andrew Dockage will burn his red shirt again for the second year in a row, and he's out there, and there'll be a return of Andrew Dockage on the floor, and he's been playing great. He's got a lot of spike in him, and I mean that as a very positive and complimentary way. And so he will help us off the bench. Karis Mohammed will play the guards, and Andrew will back him up, and until we get Derek back.
Simon?
Coach, you said that since you made the announcement, there's other injuries in practice?
Yeah.
What are those?
You'll find out tomorrow.
Are those affecting the guard position?
It could affect anything. We had a couple more injuries, so we'll see how tender they are or whether they can go tomorrow. You'll be able to see. Do not, given our situation, I'm not interested in telling our opponent who's maybe playing at half speed.
Does it almost feel kind of like deja vu after what you went through?
No, this is probably, we've been through a little bit of this. Sure, this is probably more just from the fact that we're dealing with a Zach Irvin who is still really in recovery, but able to play, but still he was really playing at a very elite level when he got done last year. So there's a lot of things, but it's part of it. 41 years, had this so rarely. I guess we're getting, as a coach, our team's had this so rarely, I guess we're, all right, we're gonna give it to you for a couple of years straight here, and to make up for all the times you've been blessed.
John?
Given what you were saying about physicality and rebounding, things like that after the game, did that show in practice this week? Was there an extra emphasis on those things?
We've only had one practice since that. The physicality, there were some points there where we got into jumping contests with guys that we're not gonna out-jump. But basically, the biggest rebounding problems were off penetration, off a lack of communication. And then it allows to downhill drive, one step off, and you lose your rebounding position. And so with the young, especially with our two young, the 18, 19-year-old center, they're just no match for Tolbert. They're just a few years away, if ever. Tolbert is very skilled at what he does, rebounding and finishing at the rim. And we'll get better there. I don't know if we practice for a year, we're going to be better than he was in that game.
Yeah, John, with every season kind of having key moments, every program having key moments, things like that. With this, coming off a loss, now losing Spike, you've talked about these guys growing up and things like that. What's the balance between still growing up and not pressing but going the right way now?
Well, what concerns us a lot is you look at his assists right now, he hasn't played very many minutes, and he's got twice as many assists as two of our starters. So those type of things, we just gotta grow through. And so he's, it's just one of those things that we have to sort of reshape a little bit and spend, when you have exams coming, you're only practicing really one day, that day and a half before every game, there's not a lot of time to reshape. So, but that's the only thing we can do with it. We really thought, I think, based on the normal hip surgery like this, which is sort of new, but he'd be really close to it right now. But there was so much, it just hasn't happened, and frankly, it's not happened with a lot of hip surgeries around the country. It's very slow recovery, much slower than I think some people anticipated. So we've been readjusting every day, basically. Is Spike gonna be better today? No, he's not.
I guess one of the way you've always talked about Spike, it always kind of seems like you really identified with him maybe as a player.
Much better player than I was, but no, I mean, you saw it the other day, he hasn't been able to practice, and there he is on a national television game in front of a packed audience, and he gets a three and just knocks it down. He told me afterwards, he said the second one he thought was in, he was gonna turn and look at George W. and tell him a little bit about that shot. So, I mean, that's who he is. I think it's just great stuff, and he's got that stuff in him. We're gonna miss it a lot, but we're gonna embrace what he gave us.
Noah?
John, sort of in that same vein, I think the thing that a lot of people nationally remember Spike for is the national championship game, and I'm sure you were caught up in coaching the game at the time, but do you sort of remember anything about what was going through your mind when he's basically taking over the games? And
No, this whole run, people talk about that. I've been firsthand to see the whole thing, and not surprising to see some days in practice he do the same thing. But what I do remember is seeing Esso Akune, who was extremely dramatic in some of his expressions, with his hands on his head, shaking his head as we came into the huddle. And saying something, I do not believe what I am seeing. And it was just it is a historic moment, because Esso was so close to us as well. So I wish I had a picture of Esso's face, because Esso, he basically beat out Esso and was playing in front of him. And so it was, Esso was very happy that he was out there at that time doing that.
Back to Simon.
Coach, I know you kind of tell the recruiting story a lot. You talk to a lot of different people. You know, either this is going to be the best decision, or you're going to get me fired. Was there ever a moment, I guess, that first season when you decided, yeah, this is a pretty good decision?
Yeah, I think every day in practice, we would see it. His team wins, his team wins, his team wins again, his team wins. Wait a minute, those other guys are on that other team are really highly recruited, but his team keeps winning. Now, we saw that, and I think you saw him at his best last year, when that team is no way is 16-16. He was Ohio State's sort of shutting them out. Purdue in the first half against Purdue, we're leading, or we're tied at halftime, because of Spike. You know, there was never any time I doubted that decision.
Brendan?
What's it mean for Karras to now be the only active senior captain?
Because we were talking with Karras about that yesterday. There we were just walking 5 freshmen out on the floor at one time in the national championship game, and there's one guy there who's all left. And that's where we are right now. The unplanned attrition, not through transfer, through injury and NBA, is got us right now. It's got us, and we got to just say, okay, it's got us. Now what are we gonna do? We'll get better. We'll find ways to patch it. And I don't know what you do. I don't know how you change it next time. You say, no, Nick, we don't want you. You might be gone in 2 years, you know, or no, Spike, we don't want you. Your hips are gonna be bad. You deal with the cards you're dealt.